Welcome back to another day. I have a rear end. That's right, we just got back from Chicago. So I'm gonna rip that thing out of the back of my Volvo. Believe it or not, we fit it in there. And I'm gonna see if the center section fits. Well, here it is. So this is the new rear end that we picked up in the Chicago area from a wonderful lady down there. Thank you very much. So here is the center section that came out of my rear end that was broken. And here is the new one. So mine's obviously missing the pinion, but that's also an aluminum center section. It looks to be the exact same bolt pattern and everything else. So I'm gonna get this thing on some jack stands, pull the axles out of there, get the center section out, throw the Datsun up in the air, get it back up and prepped, and then get this center installed. All right, there we are. There is our nicely functioning, decent looking, while still worn, center section. Yeah, who knows how long it's actually got, but it looks better than what we have. All right, so in order to get that new center section in here, just have to go through the process of scraping off all this gasket material. I may clean this housing out just a little bit more and dry it off, and then get a layer of silicone or gray RTV on there. Greetings, viewers. I got back from Chicago yesterday and I started tearing apart the rear end. You saw that. Andrew is back. He's helping me here try and bring this thing to the finish line. He's currently working on scavenging a brake line from the other rear end, because we took the wheel cylinder off of this rear end and of course the fitting was stuck to the line. So we're gonna try see if we can not make a brake line. Right now, I just RTV'd the rear end housing and we got done cleaning up the new center section. So we're just waiting a little bit for that RTV to skin over, and then we're gonna slam the center section back in, and then we can put the axles back in and we'll get to reassembling the rear brakes. So anyway, yeah, we'll cut back to when we're ready to slam the rear end in. Our silicone is, we're gonna call it skinned over, ready to go. Here's our incredibly light aluminum center section. Man, I love this thing. I hate that they're weak. But man, is it nice when you're putting this in. It's like a little baby 9-inch, you know? Okay, take two. Don't fumble this, right? These are not easy to find.
Nuclear football.
Okay. Oh, look at that. Right into place. Okay, we got a safety nut on there.
Yep.
We will just come on. Oh, hang on. Oh, it's out on that side.
Jesus.
Is this thing being such a turd going in? What the fuck? What are we fighting against? Shouldn't be anything in the way.
Is he inside this thing?
Guess we're gonna have to try just pulling it in with the nuts. It doesn't seem to want to go all the way in, which is weird. I know it fought me on the way out. A little bit at a time. All right, I just wanted to show this on camera because it's kind of strange. Rear wheel cylinders on a solid axle 510. This is what they look like, brand new. They're kind of funky. They have a big rubber cover goes over it, and then they have three spring clips that mount them to the axle, or to the backing plate, I mean. So this whole process is a little bit strange. You can probably see, here's the old. Well, we got the old one out here. Okay, yeah, look at that crud. Ugh. This thing had been leaking for a long time. Anyway, so the e-brake, this is the e-brake lever right here. You can't see that super well from your perspective, but on the other side of the backing plate, there's actually like a little pin that sticks out, and the wheel cylinder, actually that pin kind of slides right into this slot right here. So as you're feeding the wheel cylinder through, it doesn't bolt in, it just uses those clips. So you feed, well, let's start with this. Let me back up. Start with putting the new seal around the e-brake arm. And actually I can show you that now. So there's the e-brake arm, that's the pivot point right there. That slides through the front of the backing plate, just like that. And the new gasket, the new seal here, slides over. There's a thin little line for it, slides all the way through just like that. Then take your wheel cylinder here, that slides through the backing plate, but make sure that it captures that pivot point of the e-brake arm. So now you can see that that wheel cylinder is actually holding that e-brake arm. And then here are the 3 clips. There's one here that looks almost like a ski, right? Or a snowmobile ski. This goes in first. So this guy right here,
It's not confusing at all.
curve side, right? The skis kick out away from the backing plate. So that one goes in from the top, slides down, just like that. The second clip, this guy right here, this one's flat, right? That comes on top of the other clip from the other direction. Just like this. So then the 2 of those kind of create like a spring, and then the final clip right here. So this one here comes from the same orientation as the second clip. That's what's going on. So it slides over that second clip. There we go. Oop. And again, remember that that tab actually butts up against the wheel cylinder. And might be helpful to tap this in with a screwdriver. That's how I did the other side. And I believe that's it. Right there. So those 3 clips go in, hold the wheel cylinder, holds it nice and stout to the backing plate. And then the new rubber seal goes over the whole mess. I think it even goes over those clips as well. There we go. So that's how it's done. It's my first time doing these, so I guess, yeah, maybe don't take my advice as gospel, but that should work. So we're gonna get to assembling the rest of the shoes and springs, and then hook up the lines. We have to make a line for the passenger side because that line's stripped out. And then we'll get the e-brake stuff hooked back up, and who knows, maybe we'll be bleeding this thing and filling it with oil. I did not film a whole bunch of this process because, well, it wasn't pretty, all right? We ended up having to take the adjuster, because these rear brakes on 510s, there's a manual adjustment for the drums. They do not have an auto adjuster like every other manufacturer in the world. There's just a screw here in the back that drives like a conical piece of metal in between the top 2 shoes to adjust them out. Anyway, we had to take that adjuster out, clean it out, lube it up, put it back together, steal some parts out of the parts axle, and then finally we had a working adjuster on this side. But on the other side, using the new shoes and the new drums, it was like hammering the drum on. And it was really, really hard to turn it. Now this one has some resistance over here, but the other side was like locked up with the new drum on. So we ended up pulling the new drums, brand new drums, off the axle and putting the used drums on. We have just a little bit more space in there with the new shoes. Basically, it is what it is. So this isn't perfect. This is a Datsun rear end, whatever, right? This car's gonna make too much power and blow this thing up anyway, but we now have at least the drums that go on. So we're gonna put the drive shaft in, get that bolted up, fill the rear end with fluid, and then bleed some rear brakes and take this thing for a spin maybe. Off camera, we did a whole bunch of stuff. We got the rear brakes back together. Let's see, we bled the clutch again, bled all the brakes again. We have firm brake pedal, finally, yes! I think the only other thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put the hood on. It's raining like cats and kittens outside. We're gonna set the hood on the car. I don't know, maybe should we ratchet strap it using the fenders or something just to hold it in place? We really want to drive this thing around the block with the new rear end. Want to make sure nothing else crazy is going on with that. Plus, the last time we got driving footage of this car, I know the audio was all clipped, so I got something, hopefully fix that. Anyway, we're gonna set the hood on, maybe ratchet it down and take it for a drive in the middle of a rainstorm. Let's see. That is much quieter.
How's the clutch feel?
Pretty good. Ooh, the brakes are, oh yeah. Come on, micro squirt, why does it do this? Anybody else have trouble with the cam sync? Feels good. I'm actually okay with it. It's better than it was. I get much firmer pedal out of the clutch. I'm trying to see if we can hear anything from the rear end. I don't hear anything. I don't hear anything bad yet. Nothing worse than it was anyway.
It's pretty quiet.
Look at this, man. Freaking windshield wipers working. They're not even that bad.
Oh, they're not. A little rain X and we'll have it dick. All right, folks, we just got back from a drive that for once did not end in disaster. As far as I could tell anyway, the rear end seems fine. Nice and tight, smooth. We are hearing some noise from the gears in the transmission, and I think that's because the trans is literally touching the tunnel. It's up so high. Otherwise, just checked the temperature, and I think it was at 190 degrees, which I think with the fans I have is about as good as we're gonna get. So, there it is. We actually got a car wash while we were out there. The Datsun runs, drives, it stops. And man, the clutch actually works really good now. The windshield wipers work, it's so freaking nice. It actually stays reasonably dry too, believe it or not, even with all the windows being, you know, door seals out of it and stuff. And at 68 miles an hour, the decibel out of the exhaust is tolerable. It's several days later. Anyway, currently battling overheating issues on the KA. Seems like I don't have something right. In the last video, we took this thing for a short drive and it hit like maybe 190 degrees on the temp gauge from micro squirt. However, since then, this thing has been getting hot while I drive it, hitting 205, 210, something like that. And it doesn't seem like the fans are really doing that much. So last night, me and my neighbor Eric from S Motorsports spent several hours taking the radiator out, flushing it,
making sure we had everything bypassed and capped off underneath the intake manifold. I actually gutted the thermostat, and we've used one of those radiator fill funnels over there to burp the system, and we are still not getting anywhere. But then today I came in to the shop this afternoon, and wouldn't you know it, there's a giant puddle of coolant on the ground. So I think we also have a leak. Anyway, I have heard there are a couple key things to look for when you're bleeding the cooling system on a KA. Number one, the front of the KA needs to be elevated. Everything I've seen on message boards suggests that in order to get the radiator above the engine high enough for coolant to bleed, you have to tilt the engine or at least jack up the front of the car. The second thing that is very important for bleeding coolant on a KA is the bolt that goes right here. If you notice mine, it is actually snapped off. This is the coolant bleed screw. This is what you would use to let air out of the cooling system while you're filling it or while you're burping it. Mine is snapped off, so I am going to try first elevating the front end of the car to see if I can get it to bleed. If that doesn't work, then I will be welding a nut to that, backing that broken bolt out, and putting a new one in its place. Okay, I have been working feverishly for the last several days trying to figure out why this KA in the Datsun will not cool. I've done a ton of research, looked on forums, and everybody talks about the bleeding procedure, bleeding this car. Jacking up the front, using the bleeder screw. Oh yeah, so I just want to give you guys a quick glimpse into what this shop looks like right now. There are parts and tools and the welder over there, and there's like 4 different radiators all over the floor because I have been trying so hard to mock up something to test this theory. But I think I finally found the smoking gun, and I'll show you what that is. Okay, so this radiator right here, this is came with the engine and trans I got from Ryan in Ohio. Don't worry, Ryan, not blaming you, right? This was brand new in the box. Nobody ever ran this thing. It's never been tested on a car, and it looked like it was going to fit perfectly for my setup, so I used it. So, considering that the inlet and the outlet of this radiator are on the same side, my assumption, and maybe this was wrong, was that this is actually a dual pass radiator. So I would think that coolant would come in the upper port, flow down through the tubes over to this side, drop all the way to the bottom, and come all the way across and out the outlet, so that the water is forced to go through the tubes like a normal radiator. At least that's what I thought. Well, after all of the other troubleshooting I've done with this thing, flushing it out, flushing the block, adding water wetter, bubbling this thing and burping it over and over and over again, I finally washed this radiator out one more time, and I put the hose on this port right here, and you would think that it would have to fill up all this space all the way over here and then come out this port. Well, as soon as I put the hose on here, water immediately came out here. So, using a piece of small rubber hose, so I shoved the hose in the upper port just like that, and wouldn't you know it, there it is. That radiator has been the problem this entire time. This tank is completely open on this side. There is no divider. This is not a dual pass radiator. This is a no pass radiator. It doesn't do a fucking thing. The coolant comes in this side and immediately gets sucked into the inlet of the water pump or out the bottom. This does not cool anything. The water is not forced through the tubes. It comes in this side and goes out. That's it. Over time, the radiator will heat soak when the car is off, and this side will get warm. But what I was experiencing is while the car was running, the hose connected to the engine was bubbling and like boiling like crazy, like it was overheating. So it would overheat, expand, and it would push water out the fill. And then once the radiator had a chance to cool it off a little bit, it would just suck right back in. We had no coolant flow through this radiator. Now, I don't know if this is a CX Racing unit or if this is just an eBay unit. But for those of you that are considering running this radiator in a swap like this, be wary of the fact that it may or may not be a dual pass radiator. So if the inlet and the outlet port of the radiator are on the same side and they're open, all the way open, water is not going to go through the radiator if it doesn't have to. It's going to take the easiest path, which is directly from the inlet right down and out the outlet. So effectively, this entire time I've been trying to get this car to cool, it's had no radiator. The only heat reduction that has happened is by conduction or convection of hot water mixing with cold water. That's it. And eventually it would push enough water to the other side of the radiator and the fan would kick on and cool it just enough to where it would get pulled back in by the engine. That's about it. Hopefully throughout this process I haven't really done any damage. I think the hottest it got was 215. So we haven't actually overheated this thing yet, but it was always running hot. And it's because of this stupid, I'm assuming Chinese, poorly built radiator. I've enlisted the help of my neighbor Eric from S Motorsports. He's got an old small block Chevy radiator and maybe some flex hoses. I think we are going to attempt to mock it up so that we can prove that this engine will cool with a properly functioning radiator. If that doesn't work or if it's too difficult, I have a plan. I think I'm going to cut a slit in the tank, the end tank on this thing, and then make a piece of aluminum, slip it in there, TIG it all shut so that I can make this a dual pass radiator. We'll see what happens. Eric's on his way back now, and maybe we'll get that thing in there. Viewers, we're back. So, I don't know if you can tell, but I got a new radiator, and it fits really, really good. Exactly. So this this radiator came from S Motorsports. This is an old one out of his old Trans Am, and we jerry-rigged it in here. It is professionally installed with zip ties. You can see the fans are held on the same way. We cobbled together a mess of hoses to get this to work. This exercise is to prove that with a functioning radiator, this engine will cool. So join us, won't you? We're gonna fire this thing up and idle it. It's probably gonna take 45 minutes to heat up all the extra coolant in this giant radiator, but we're gonna test it out right now. All right, so cars are all idling. We made some changes to the tune just so that it'll idle without the turbo hooked up. I don't know how well you'll be able to see in here. Oh, there, right there. Okay, can you see the coolant, or water in this case, is actually moving? Yes. So we should feel that the whole radiator all the way across is starting to get warm. So when we reach temperature, the fan should come on and we should see the temperature come down.
Like 115.
115. It's probably going to take a long time for this thing to come up to temperature. We're at 117 degrees right now. I don't want to change the tune too much more. We're just trying to get this thing to idle long enough to get hot so we can see the fans come on and pull it down. I wonder if I can get it to rev up at all. Look at the blow-up valve. Look at that. I mean, look at this installation though, right? Man, it's gonna fit right under the hood. You're not even gonna be able to tell that this is a Chevy radiator. You know what I think the problem is I didn't have enough Chevy parts on this car. Nissan, you've let me down a couple of times. That's not true, it's mainly eBay, wherever that radiator came from. Anyway, look at how mean it looks from the front end, right? Radiator sitting a foot out of the hood, I love it. Okay, we'll catch up right when this thing gets warm. Okay, we're gonna take this thing for a quick drive. We just wanna make sure that the cooling system works. We changed the fan set point to 180, and we're just gonna watch the temperature, make sure that it increases, fans kick on, and it decreases, and that's all we need. So I'll hand you over to Eric, and he'll either commentate and give you the computer view or whatever, it doesn't matter. We're just testing it out.
We'll watch Steve's awesome manual skills here.
Yeah. Don't mind that, that's the exhaust. On the list to be fixed. Let's see how pig rich this thing runs when the turbo's not even hooked up.
It's actually saying it's lean.
It is very lean. Okay. Oh, it might be because of the map. There it goes.
I mean, that's like spot on. So yeah, I think you started moving and it came down already.
Serious?
Yeah.
Is it at 185? No.
It's at 165.
Oh, we're not even close.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool out too right now.
Right, so that's gonna help it, but
Yeah, it's going down. We're cooling off as you're moving now.
show the viewers.
You can't see nothing.
man.
It's dark.
You guys should see how intimidating this giant radiator looks on the front of this car. Talk about a bug catcher.
Oh yeah, it's 149.
So it's like just not gonna heat up now.
No, it's not.
Well, that's fantastic. I don't know how fast we're going though.
We're going about that fast.
Yeah, keep your eye out for deer.
I know. 129.
I love it. Perfect. Hey, there we go. 123. All right, 124. Perfect. 125. Okay. There's 70.
It just gets colder.
3,200, 3,100 RPM, about 70 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think so.
Yeah.
I think we have finally solved this cooling issue.
119, 118. I mean,
Holy
come
cow.
on.
The engine actually needs me to pull over and let it idle for a minute. It's kind of funny. This is what this car would be like.
It's not bad without the turbo.
Right, this thing moves pretty good just with the factory KA. It's
Still
pretty
be,
impressive.
it'd still be fun.
Oh yeah. And if you tuned it too, it'd be even better.
Yeah. Although you still get the turbo noises right now.
Right? Right? Yeah. Right, it's sitting
Just
there.
no boost.
It's sitting there spooling and it sounds so cool, and we're not going anywhere.
No. It's 67 degrees, it says.
67 outside, and we're running 113,
13.
114
Nice.
degrees. That we just had a 70 mile per hour blast, and Eric said at that time it was just getting colder. So now we're not going to have a radiator quite this size, but we've proven that that CX Racing or eBay radiator was absolute junk. Third gear synchro's not super happy. Low life problems. Alright, there we go.
Successful drive, and it cools.
It cools really, really well.
Almost too well.
Right? I'll give you guys a quick, give you guys a tour of our Genius cooling system here. Shut her down. Let the beast cool, even though it's already cold.
Yeah.
Look right here. This is a what? Pontiac Trans Am small block Chevy radiator. Cool. awesome. It fits perfectly, as you can see, right?
Yeah.
You can't, if you look right here at the top of the rad support, you can barely see the top of it, right? It's like it's Frenched in. It's awesome.
You said you had extra hood clearance, right?
Yeah, I think we just won't run it, right? So here's the intake pipe. Whoops. We needed that sensor because it was adding a ton of fuel thinking it was negative 40 degrees outside. So this is the lower KA hose. We used a splice over here. This is a Camaro hose that happens to fit this in. That's sort of on there. The bottom hose is actually the top hose. It's kinked and all messed up. And the entire radiator is held in with this little bitty zip tie. It's tuned to a C, I think. Maybe that's B flat.
And it still worked.
And it cooled incredibly well. So that is it. New radiator is on the way. It will be here in a few days. And then I have a little bit of work reconfiguring the upper hose. I have to add a fill neck on it because the radiator I'm going to use doesn't have a cap. So I got to add a cap in line and then refabricate some mounts. So my trick aluminum mounts for that other radiator I won't be able to use. But I don't really care. Fact of the matter is we solved it. So with Eric's help, we were able to fix the friggin' cooling system on this car. And yeah, at 70 miles an hour, it was actually losing temp. So with the smaller radiator, I think I'm gonna run with the gutted thermostat anyway. I might be able to fit two 12-inch fans on it because it's a thinner core like this one. So I think after this, I should have the cooling system dialed, and finally we can wrap this thing up and get ready to hit the road. So thank you all so much for watching. Eric, thank you so much for your help. Look forward to the videos coming out about Power Tour. Eric and I are traveling together. Should be quite a good time. So thanks a lot. Catch you next time.